So we're back in the garage working on the Waggy. I've got the 6L90 here that I've been fighting with for the last few days, and I'm trying to get this tidied up. We'll go over a couple of things real fast. So the 6L90 is not yet put together for the Waggy. It should be put together by end of tonight, hopefully. Ran into some snap ring issues and bearing failure. But to update the rest of the project. So Seth Brown over here is working on the power steering pump. What do you guys want to do?
I am reverse engineering your prototype and drawing it out for one, to get a visual, and two, start drawing it out with measurements to start getting a layout of what it'll look like, and then I can add a takeaway from easy.
So this bracket, how atrocious would you call this bracket? Like on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being great, 1 being bad.
Talk about looks or functionality?
Yes.
I'm gonna okay. I'll give it a 2 ratings and then an overall rating. So on functionality, it is let's go out of 1 out of 10. Let's go a 5 because it worked until it didn't, and you have some issues with it. So I'd say it's halfway there to a usable product. Looks, it's a 2. At least there's no rebar in it.
Okay, fair. Fair.
So an overall, I'll give it a 3.7
Okay.
out of 10.
So I'm not going to defend my work because this was shoddy. But when I first started this bracket, I started out great, but I had to weld in this seam here. Basically weld this angle to this bracket. And a lot of people probably come in here and fish plate this or whatever. And I didn't do that. This was a quick throw it together to get it on the road. But when I welded this, I also did not would pulse weld it maybe or something to keep heat out of it. So it warped this. And so when that warped,
I don't even know if for one, it didn't need all this weld, and two, I mean, if you're running too hot or too much weld, like I wouldn't have pulsed it, but I would have broke it down into 1-inch sections or welded half and half, and then I also, after each weld, I would have hit it with air to dissipate that heat so it wouldn't move as much. Because anytime metal gets hot, it's going to pull, it's going to shrink. And if you have if there was any gaps in here, it's also, as that weld cools, it pulls. So it's pulling, trying to close that gap as it cools down. It shrinks. And so the bigger your gap, the more it's going to move. So that probably played in a little bit too.
so this was only going to be a bracket from, this right here, this L bracket. And then I was going to add in this. Turned into like 1/2 inch of steel here because this was warped and I had to make something work. And then I put it on. I go to Kingdom Hammers 22, and the bracket kept pulling forward. I actually had to put straps on this bracket and hook it to the firewall or the power steering, or not the brake booster, and pull the bracket straight so it stopped throwing a belt off, just so that I could get it around. So we're fixing this. Well, I'm not. Seth Brown is, because I hate that.
Well, I might even run to, if there's a parts store nearby that has one, I might even run and get a power steering pump bracket, so then I can actually transfer the holes around.
Yeah.
And it might even be something where I can use the power steering side and then add two for the block side, so that way it's less thinking.
I looked at doing that. The problem I ran into is there's so many different variations for this style of pump. Like, is it a 350 V8 that's going on? Is it a serpentine system? Like, what's going on? And it got so difficult.
Well, that's going to be for the mounting to the block.
Yeah.
I don't need that. I need the mounting to the pump.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Because I can trace the holes, get that measurement, and go return the bracket, and then that's less thinking I have to do because I've got something that I know bolts to the pump.
Yeah. There is an O'Reilly's like 30 seconds away.
Yeah, they're closed until tomorrow though.
Oh, dang it. So we have a major minor update to the TJ. This was my doing. I didn't research enough, and somebody had let me know that the MV4500 is just a direct swap. but I didn't research enough. I got an MV4500 for a Cummins, and a GM one's different. There's only a few differences, but it's enough that doesn't make it worth it to buy the conversion for the different spline output shaft and the bell housing adapter and reaming out the holes. It just doesn't make it worth it. So we're actually going to sell the MV4500 that we have. It came with the T-case. If you're interested, let us know. Reach out. And then we're going to buy a correct GM MV4500 to go on the TJ. So all the video you saw on that, Seth put in a lot of work for us, and I screwed it up.
The other Seth.
Not that Seth, the other Seth, the one behind the camera.
Yeah, he tried to bring on two Seths, so it can get confusing because I do not do media.
Is it this Seth or that Seth? Yeah. It's up to you to figure it out.
Yeah.
And sometimes I have not as glorious of a beard, but sometimes I have facial hair, so you can't. Oh, it's the one with the beard, like, or the one in the hat. Like, okay, but it's both of us.
Is it Viking Seth or Redneck Seth?
We do want to do a shout out to the guy that gave us this transmission. So he was generous enough to throw in a brand new clutch and a transfer case with this that I thought we were just purchasing the transmission, and he threw it in for what we were doing. So big shout out to him. I don't know if he has a company or anything like that, but he helped us out tremendously. So I hope that in the future we can repay him somehow. We are definitely going to reach out to him, see if he's a veteran, and see if we can't get him on some trail rides or something. So shout out to him for that. The 6L90, we had a lot of mishaps with this thing. So I originally had the Turbo 400 in the Waggy, and it just seemed too fast. I have a 205 behind it, and it just seemed like too high geared. I could barely bump up over a curb, so I wanted something that was a lot lower geared and a lot more top end drivability, because I drove to Medicine Park at like 66 mile an hour, and it was screaming. So I wanted the 6L90, and Dave at NTD Racing was taking their Turbo 400 or their 6L90 out and putting in a Turbo 400. So he did some trazies. He gave me 3 6L90s. One of them he monster trucked over with the trailer and just completely toasted the case. The other two, one of the bell housings was messed up and it was kind of so-so. He had ran it and had some issues with it. And the other one, he says he doesn't know. He ran it, but it was good. So I was going to throw that one in and just run it. Well, not 3 days later, they're still in the back of my truck. I got into a wreck. Teenage girl pulled out in front of me. One transmission went over the cab, landed in the road like 75 feet in front of me. Cracked the case, cracked the bell housing, the whole nine. One of the good ones. The other two was the disaster one, and this one went through the back window of the truck. Mind you, I had 2 straps on these, so it broke the straps to do this. It broke the bell housing on this one, and then the monster truck one I wasn't worried about. So this has been a whole transmission debacle on this and issues from the start. So I got a new replacement bell housing. And I could not get it to fit, and I found out what it was, and it was just my own stupidity. I should have taken the valve body off, and everybody told me, take the valve body off, it'll be fine, it'll go in. Well, I did that, and it went in. So yeah, I had to listen to somebody. But anyway, fast forward a little bit, and this output shaft, I had actually trimmed, and it had another stubby out here, probably another 2 or 3 inches. It's actually right here, this little paperweight. This paperweight right here. So I cut that off, and then if you look inside here, there's 2 brass plugs. Down there at the bottom. Right there, and right there. And then there's a seal on the outside of this. So that's how you convert it into a 4-wheel drive from a 2-wheel drive. I thought this was all hunky-dory. There's 2 different versions of a 6L90. One with the 36 spline output and one with the 29 spline output. I didn't know I had a 36 spline because I didn't count it, and I just went with it. I should have done, again, more research. I went to mount the T-case on it and found out I had a 36 spline. So there goes a full entire transmission rebuild. So as I'm rebuilding this transmission, I find this drum sitting in there with an O-ring this size just laid in there like that. It's like, well, that's not right. Something's really toast here. So continue pulling it apart, and I found this, the low reverse sprag. You can see a little bit of heat right there. If I pull this apart somehow, oh, it's already apart. So this one is toast. Let me find something to point with here. So there's a crack there. There's a crack right there. And I think that's the only two. But this is the low reverse sprag. So when you have, where is it at? I just saw it. This guy. We have this guy sitting in here. See if I can even get it back in. This rotates one way. Or do I have this wrong? I'm telling you guys wrong. Do it on this one. This one I know does it. So this rotates one way, right? The whole assembly, but it won't rotate the other way. That's the low reverse sprag. It's a one-way sprag, and you can, if you look at these bearings, you can tell that these are all laid one way. Only lets the bearing rotate directionally. So anyway, this cage is messed up. There was some hot spots on the top of it. This one was toast, so I couldn't use it, and also had hot spots. And that bearing's all sorts of a disaster as well. So luckily, easy enough, the transmission that was monster trucked had brand new parts in it. And that's all these parts in this bucket. So I just took that transmission apart, robbed the good parts out of it that I needed. I took the good clutches out of it, put it in this one, and then now I'm just going back together with it. So hopefully by end of tonight or tomorrow, this will be back together, and then we'll be putting it in the Waggy here soon. I think that's all we've got. So like, subscribe, follow, and we'll see you on the next one.